Hey everyone, welcome back to West Coast Minis, and in today's episode I'm going to answer the question of what is the best starter box? Now this is a difficult question because the game is halfway through its release. Not only that, but you've got Age of Sigmar with a load of the Warhammer fantasy models stuck in there, and it's also personal to you, what your army is and where you want to take it. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through all the different various factions of Warhammer the Old World and identify which boxes provide the best start, looking at the strengths and weaknesses of all of them. In doing this, I will be looking at the battalion box sets, but I'm also going to look at starter sets for Age of Sigmar, as well as the spearhead range in Age of Sigmar. Throughout this, I'm not going to be looking at other sources. This is purely focused on GW stuff. However, I will note that all of that does exist. The world of 3D printing exists, and the world of third-party miniatures exists as well. For the data, I'm going to source this from Old World Builder, which is a fantastic app and I recommend it. Then in terms of methodology, I've not completely points maxed every box out. What I'm looking to do is focus on a 1000 point army, so if the box doesn't reach 1000 points, I'll give a bit of guidance as to where to go next from there. First up, the Empire of Man, and we're starting with the Empire Battalion. This is a good box set. In it you get 30 state troops, that's the melee version, which can be built as spearmen, swordsmen, or halberdiers, and then you also get 30 missile state troops that can be built as either crossbowmen or as handgunners. Finally, to round it off, you get the steam tank, which is a bit punchy for a starter army, but we can roll with that anyway. If you were to roll this as it is, let's say roll a 20-man squad of halberdiers with full command, make those veteran infantry as well, and then a 10-man squad of swordsmen, and then probably 3 10-man groupings of handgunners, each with a champion with a Hochland long rifle. That would be quite a strong way to roll this without completely taking the piss. And then obviously you've got your steam tank as per. This gives you a total of 824 points. Problem is, you've got no one to lead this army. If this was the only box I had, I would take one of the state troops sergeants or one of the handgunner sergeants, and I would call them an engineer or a captain of the Empire. This would bring the points up more to the 900 point mark, and I would actually be able to legally play at that stage. If I wanted to extend the army from there, I think that Outriders or Pistoliers would both be a good option. Give you a bit of mobility and also more firepower. Elsewhere, you can never go wrong with a cannon or a mortar, so those are the kind of 2 areas which I would recommend to go from. Clearly, as you do work towards the army, you'll want to pick up your own general, and there's multiple different options out there, be it the plastic kit or various older metal options. But that's not all. For those looking to engage with Tylea or the Border Princes, they can go for the AOS Spearhead. Now this is a slightly different take on the Empire of Man and isn't necessarily lore-wise the Empire of Man, but let's go for it. In this box you've got a Chapter Master, as well as 5 Empire Knights, 10 State Troops and a Great Cannon. So it just comes in at just under 500 points. Now this isn't an ideal start, and it is cheaper and I would argue a lot better to go for the Empire Battalion, but again, if thematically this is what you want in regards to the Border Princes or etc., then you'll have to answer where your next steps are. I mean, you could get another one of these boxes, but there's a whole load of options and it depends on your vision for the army. Moving swiftly on to the war, and there's 4 different boxes worth talking about now. The Orc and Goblin Battalion gives you 31 Orc boys, 40 Goblins on foot, and then 2 Orc boar chariots. Breaking this down, I would take that one extra orc boy boss, and I'll promote him to war boss, put him on a chariot, so then you've got a leader for the army. From there, you then get 2 squads of 15 orc boys apiece, and you can do a large goblin mob with spears, and then a slightly smaller goblin mob with short bows. Add the other final boar chariot in, and then this gets you up to about 750 points. From here, 3 trolls with great weapons and a level 2 orc shaman round your list off. It gives you all the magic you need and all the strength that you need at 1000 points exact. On the subject of trolls, the Gloomspite Gits Spearhead gets you them. So you've got 3 of them in there, as well as 10 Night Goblin Squig Hopper mobs, 20 Night Goblins, and then a Night Goblin War Boss. This gives you a round total of about 420 points, and it's a good way to start if you just are focused on the Night Goblin side of Orcs and Goblins. Elsewhere, this could also be a decent second purchase if you started off with the battalion as well. If you are purely just focused on Night Goblins, the next thing that I would get from this set would be some Squigs, just to round out that Squig loving. The Ironjaw Spearhead comes in at just under 400 points. The Mega Boss is going to come out as a Black Orc War Boss, and then everything else in it is going to go into 1 unit of Black Orcs. It'll be a fantastic unit with lots of different weapon options and loads of character, but it's going to be a struggle getting everything from this box set onto 30mm bases. This isn't a beginner purchase and will be quite complex to all fit together. However, if that's your style, it's worth putting in there. Finally, the Cruel Boys Spearhead. Now, this is kind of at odds with a lot of things, but I'll just go through it. So, you've got 2 bosses. One of them is on a boar chariot. That's what you'd have to proxy the thing on the giant hyena for. You've got 10 orc boy mobs with shields and hand weapons. That's pretty standard. And the next one, the bolts from the 3 kind of bolt throwing orcs. They are the same size as a goblin bolt thrower's bolts. So consideration, you could have 3 bolt throwers there. And then if they're going up, then you could also make the larger bolt thrower into a goblin rock clobber. Again, it's a bit of a twist and requires a bit of imagination, but this is what you could do with this spearhead, and it'll bring you up to 500 points total, or just over. One for consideration. It's not quite my style though. Overall, for Orcs and Goblins, I think that Battalion is the best place to start. The Gloomspite Gits Spearhead could be a different place to start if you fancied playing Night Goblins primarily. However, it could also be the second point that you jump off to, or the second purchase after the Battalion. Dwarves have got a particularly strong battalion. They've got 32 warriors, as well as 16 thunderers, which can be built as quarrelers, but we're not going to. And then they've also got 2 gyrocopters, or how I would build them, gyro bombers. This gives you a total points of 873. However, again, I'd recommend pulling out 2 of the warriors who have got the same bodies as the thunderers, so are interchangeable, and turning one into an engineer with a brace of pistols, and the other one into a thane, and then he's going to be the general. This gets us to just under 1,000 points that a couple of runes can square, so that's you playing 1,000 points just from this box. Then if you want to, you can get some replacement heroes for your proxy ones and a bit of artillery to balance it out, but there's no need to. This is a perfectly good force to get started with. Where Caradron's concerned, there really isn't a good option to bring into the old world. However, with the Slayers, there's a quite easy port, but requires a little bit of explaining. As it stands, this is an illegal army because a dragon or a demon slayer cannot lead an army, and slayers are a special unit, so we need a bit of core. However, the battlesmith can be played as a runesmith, who can be the general. So this gives you 2 heroes. That dragon slayer I'll pull out from one of the other groups of slayers. You've then got 2 units of general slayers, and a unit of 5 slayers who are giant slayers with great weapons. These are the Hearthguard Berserker models. As mentioned, the Dwarf Battalion is really strong, gets you 1,000 points so you can play out the bat. And then in regards to the Fire Slayers, they could be a fantastic option for a Karak Kadrin themed army. However, for me, they do require a bit of converting because of all the high fantasy details. The Warriors of Chaos boast the best value for money of any box set in this list. Their box set, if fully tricked out, could be worth 1,500 points. And it would all be fully playable with a dedicated character model as well. Now this isn't the optimum build, but it's how I'd make it. So you have an Exalted Champion as the general on a Chaos Chariot, then have 32 Chaos Warriors broken into 2 squads of 16, 10 Chaos Knights into 2 squads of 5, and another Chaos Chariot. All of this together spits out 1,139 points. So it's a question as what you want to lose to get to 1,000 points rather than what you need to gain. This puts you in a really good position. From here you could reduce your number of Chaos Warriors, potentially make a Aspiring Champion, or drop a whole unit of Chaos Knights. It's up to you really. Now Warriors of Chaos have technically got 6 spearheads in AOS. All of the mono-good ones are full of demons and stuff that just doesn't exist in the old world, so are a non-starter. However, the other 2 do have options. So the first one to mention, coming in at about 500 points, or just shy of it, with an Aspiring Champion, 10 Chaos Warriors, 5 Chaos Knights and Chaos Chariot, is the Slaves to Darkness Spearhead, which you may consider due to the more modern sculpts. But for me, the Dark Oath Spearhead is the one that's really worth looking at. Though there's some issues with the characters and not being in heavy armour, etc., I think that it's just really cool. So, you can have an Aspiring Champion and an Exalted Sorcerer out of this one. And then in terms of core units, you've got 5 Marauder Horsemen, 10 Chaos Marauders with shields and hand weapons, then 9 Chaos Marauders with great weapons. When you combine both of these spearheads together, you can easily have a 1,000 point army. What's more, it's really versatile and it's got really up-to-date modern sculpts, so it's one for consideration. Either way, with Chaos you're sorted. You've got the best value for money battalion box that there is, and you've also got a really modern option, albeit with a few more pounds to spend. Okay, so Monty Python and the Bretonnians. So, in their starter set, there's a lot in there. You pay a premium for it, but there's a lot going on. If you don't want any of the extras, you can always sell them on eBay. In terms of what you've got in the box, you've got a Duke on a Royal Pegasus, then you've got, in terms of core units, you've got some Knights, a load of Peasant Bowmen, a load of Men-at-Arms, and then finally on special you've got 3 Pegasus Knights. So a well-rounded box that is a good start for a Bretonnian player, and you've got well over 1,000 points in there. Okay, Beastmen, or as they've recently been known, Beasts of Chaos. They were in Age of Sigmar for a few editions and have been dropped in favour of the Old World. Welcome back. And this time they've been teased, not released, so we've got no eyes on a battalion yet. However, we do know what the spearhead looked like for Beastmen, so if you can still get your hands on that, here's what you've got. Coming in at 600 points, you get a Bray Shaman, 10 Ungors, 10 Gors, 10 Bestigors, and then 3 Dragon Ogres. So you've got a lot of infantry, but Dragon Ogres are bringing a considerable punch. Now, you've got almost 400 points to play with, so the world's kind of your oyster here. If I was building on from here, I would want a Doom Bull and some Minotaurs, because I can get all of that in core, and that'll fill up my kind of core spaces. Elsewhere, we're a bit slow, so to kind of get up the field a bit more, some Hounds of Chaos would be useful. And then that should get you roughly to your 1000 points ready to start playing. Okay, on to Wood Elves. Now, in Age of Sigmar, we've got Sylvaneth, which are just the walking, talking trees. So you don't have any of the glory and wonder of the Wood Elves, but that should be coming in the next few months. In the Spearhead, you've got a Branch Witch, who you would play as a Branch Witch, a Tree Lord Ancient, who you play as a Tree Man Ancient. You then got 5 Tree Revenants, which you just play as Dryads, because there's not really a replacement. And then the 3 Kernoth Hunters, they're going to be Tree Kin. Now, with just a few Glade Guard and Glade Riders, you can easily reach that 1000 points mark. But I would just recommend erring on the side of caution. Same with the Beastmen, just until the battalion's out, until you really dive in if either of these tree dwellers are what you want. GW went big with the return of the Tomb Kings. The Tomb King core set was £180, so the most expensive of any in this list. I mean, it did come with some cool stuff, like the Necrolith Bone Dragon is awesome. But in total here, what are you getting? So 1,275 points, give or take. You've got a High Priest on the Bone Dragon, you've got a Tomb Prince slogging on foot. Then for core, there's so much. You've got 40 Skeleton Warriors with spears and shields, you've got 32 Skeleton Archers, you've got 3 Skeleton Chariots, and then you've got 16 Skeleton Horsemen. So a massive amount of core options there. Again, like Chaos, it's a question of what do you get rid of, which is a good position to be. Moving on later down the line, I definitely want to pick up some constructs just to get a bit more variety. There's loads of skeletons here. Newly released, the High Elf Battalion comes out almost perfectly on the money at 1000 points. What will your army look like? Well, it's going to be a Shrasian Prince on a Lion Chariot. Elsewhere in core, 32 Elven Spearmen and 32 Elven Archers give you a formidable ground holding force. And then one more chariot in a Tyrannok Chariot. That rounds you out at 998 points. This is my recommended way to start High Elves, but it's not the only way. So you can also pick up the Lumineth Spearhead and go from there. At just under 500 points, this is not a better deal for your money, but it's a different aesthetic, so if you like that, then here we go. So you'll have a level 2 mage, 10 Elven Spearmen, 10 Elven Archers, and 5 Swords Masters of Hoeth. As mentioned, the battalion is the most efficient option and the best way to start. However, it's up to you with Lumineth. It may be that you just have a real vibe for that. Now, to kick off the legacy factions, we're going to start off with the Dark Elves. Now, there is a Daughters of Cain Spearhead. This has got a variety of different things, some of which are useful, not all are though. So, 10 Witch Elves, which is self-explanatory, 5 Doomfire Warlocks, and then the hero can be proxied as a Bloodrack Medusa. Outside of that, the rest of the Caneri, Snake Women, don't really have a function or a role or any space within a Dark Elf army. However, there is another option. Given that the Spearhead only kicks out 300 points and Games Workshop still sell all the Dark Elf models, I recommend that you just buy box by box. It's not perfect and it's a bit of a cop-out, but that's the reality, as the Daughters of Cain box is not useful for the old world in reality. Skaven are really cool, and they are an absolutely iconic threat in Warhammer the Old World. They are obviously a legacy faction, which is a shame, but they are the prime enemy faction right now from Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So they've got a lease of new life with a really updated range that actually fits onto the bases really well. So let's look at the Spearhead, let's look at Skaven Tide, and let's look at the starter sets. The Spearhead's got one glaring issue, and that's that Storm Fiends aren't in Warhammer the Old World, so that's a lot less points. So the Skaven Spearhead comes out at 586 points. That gives you a Grey Seer, 20 Clan Rats, 3 Rat Ogres / Storm Fiends, and a Warp Lightning Cannon. Now I wouldn't like to proxy when there are brand new Rat Ogres out there. So if you got the half of the Skaven starter set, which is readily available, that gives you 1 Grey Seer, 1 Warlock Engineer, 20 Clan Rats, and 3 Rat Ogres. Now, in the UK, you can pick up through like Wayland Games or Element Games the Age of Sigmar starter set for under £60. So you can easily sell the Stormcast for 20 quid. So that's 40 quid. You can buy a couple of these and you're away. Likewise, you probably don't want to be rolling multiple Grey Seers, but essentially, because of Skaven being the kind of prime enemy faction right now, you can pick up Rat Ogres and just Skaven Clan Rats very cheaply right now. So is an option to kind of amass those basic troops. Now, if you can still get a copy of Skaven Tide, then that could be one option. It's quite expensive in the second-hand market, as I've seen it. What does that give you? 830 points. You've got Grey Seer, a Warlock Engineer, 40 Clan Rats, 3 Warlock Chazelles, 3 Rat Ogres, and then the kind of crazy cannon thing on wheels. I mean, that's a Doom wheel, right? Now, I can't seem to find a use for the Skaven Warlord, but if you are going to reach to 1000 points from here, I'll just go on eBay and pick up another 3 Rat Ogres, a couple of magic items, and you're there. So with everything in mind, for prospective Skaven players, I would recommend the hodgepodge approach, a bit of eBay, a bit of starter set, just to kind of ground yourself and get a massive core. Skaven's a horde army and has always been expensive, but due to what's happening in AOS right now, it's probably the cheapest it's ever been. I always thought that vampire counts were one of the coolest factions in the old world, but alas, their legacy. However, the Soulblight Gravelords have got a Spearhead, and so do the Flesh Eater Courts. The Soulblight Spearhead kicks out at just over 600 points with a Vampire Thrall, 20 Skeleton Warriors, 3 Crypt Horrors rather than Vargheists, because you can't legally play Vargheists without Ghoul King, and then 5 Blood Knights. The Flesh Eater Courts box gives you a Ghoul King, 10 Crypt Ghouls, and a Varghulf. You'll then use the Morgheb Knights as Vargheists. I think either of these are great places to start, and the old world community is like really cool. Everyone would play a friendly game with you, at 500, 600 points, whatever, with these, especially open to legacy players. However, if you wanted to combine both of these together, you could make a really tidy 1000 point army, so let's go into that. Well, combined, you'd have a Strigoi Ghoul King, a Vampire Thrall, 20 Skeleton Warriors, 10 Crypt Ghouls, 3 Vargheists, 3 Crypt Horrors, and a Varghulf. So lots of power there to punch up the field. So thanks to these 2 boxes, you're well served for vampire counts. They've got loads of cool models in and around as well, well worth looking into. Chaos Demons players tend to be strange people. However, I think it's important to be inclusive to all comers to the old world. So, for Chaos Demons, you can get the Chaos Demons Combat Patrol, which is completely Khorne focused, but in there you've got the basis for a 1000 point Warhammer the Old World army. So with a Demonic Herald of Khorne, 20 Bloodletters of Khorne, 10 Flesh Hounds of Khorne, and 3 Blood Crushers, that pulls you up to 968 points, of which I would just get a magic item on the Herald to push me up to 1000. It's a great place to start. It's all wrapped in one box. All you need is square bases. As the Lizardmen were able to press the eject button and escape out of the old world in their spaceships during the end times, the Seraphon can still give you everything that you need to collect Lizardmen. So the Seraphon Spearhead is a great place to start. In there you get a Saurus Scar Veteran on a Carnosaur, so it's always fantastic to start off with the T-Rex. You then get 10 Saurus Warriors and 3 Kroxigor, so pretty hard hitting. As mentioned, Seraphon tends to be in stock and it's a really up-to-date army, so you're in a good place coming from here. You could go for 2 big dinosaurs, get a Triceratops and a Bastillodon, or you could also just get another Spearhead box, of which you can roll more Warriors, more Kroxigors, and then you've also got a Troglodon, which you can pump in the rare slot as well. So you've still got 2 big dinosaurs, which is the main thing really. So with an up-to-date model range, models available, and a decent Spearhead, Lizardmen are actually a really good option if you're considering being a legacy faction player. Certainly one that I would consider. I think I've left the best Spearhead till last. Ogres are a classic Warhammer Fantasy army, and the models are relatively unchanged. Other than a new Tyrant and a new Hunter model, they've not really gotten anything for Age of Sigmar at this point. I think the new Hunter in particular gives off a very different style, which we may see in a Ogre Moor Tribes rework. But for now, the Ogre Spearhead is full of models that give me so much nostalgia because they are all 7th and 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy models. What's more, it's legal. Well, let me explain. So you've got a Tyrant who's almost 200 points on his own. You've then got 6 Ogre Bulls, 4 Lead Belchers, 2 Mournfang Cavalry, and an Iron Blaster. You've then also got 10 Nobbler Trappers. Now I know there's not 10 Nobbler Trappers in the box, but there are well over 10 Nobblers just attached to all the Ogre kits. Put these on 25mm bases, and again, good faith from the Warhammer the Old World community, people would accept these as Nobbler Trappers. So I think this is a fantastic way to start Warhammer the Old World, so much that I've bought this very box. Ogres are a brilliant starting race because they're easy to build, easy to paint, and you can move any head from any kit and any weapon from any kit. They're really easy to customise and just play around with. Ogres are a great place to start. Strongly recommend this box. Chaos Dwarves exist. If you want to start collecting them, you'll find a way. Tip: buy a 3D printer. There is an elephant in the room with a lot of these though. I've recommended various different spearheads and AOS models generally. Clearly these all come on a spherical base. Again, I would recommend the Old World Builder because in there it says exact sizes of bases that are required for the models. In terms of this, I would recommend picking these up on eBay. With 3D printing being rife as it is now, you can pick up all size bases that you require on eBay for a lot cheaper, and these are particularly cheap when you buy them in bulk, as I have. From here it also becomes a consideration when you're building. If the models all have to rank up, then the more dynamic poses are going to be more difficult to fit in together. So just one really to have in consideration, think about how they're going to be interacting with each other once ranked up. So that's it for today. I think some factions have got an easier start than others. I also think that when the Old World is fully complete and then we move on to our 2nd edition, it would be nice to see a starter set like you used to get with the Empire versus Orcs or High Elves versus Skaven, all that kind of good stuff again. I've certainly not got the monopoly on good ideas though. What do you think of these ways of getting started? Are there others that you would recommend for different factions? Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this today, please give it a like. It really helps the channel out in terms of the YouTube algorithm, whatever that is. And then finally, there's plenty more Warhammer the Old World and more content coming on this channel, so make sure to subscribe for more. As mentioned before, it really helps the channel out and I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.